So it's 3:58 at ALL4PACK Paris. So welcome. We're going to have a great debate on packaging design, and we call it good design needs good customer understanding. Now, we're going to see how design agencies and customers work together to come up with successful packaging. What is successful packaging? And is design reserved for just an elite, for big companies, or is it more accessible than many people believe? We're going to look at this at ALL4PACK. We have these three questions we're going to be examining with our guests. Jean-Jacques Evra, you're the founder of the Pentawards. We've had them for 10 years. It's a packaging design competition. Welcome, Jean-Jacques. Next to you, Gérald, CARON, a designer. You you set up CARON, the agency, and now you're chair of the Pentawards design. Now, you are a lifetime designer, so I assume that you spend your days and nights working on this. Next, Marine FORLINI-CROUZET, Vice President for Marketing, ForceMajeure Design. Welcome. And then we have Gérald GALDINI, Creative Director for Partisan de Sens agency. A wonderful title. Because it does make sense. Next to you, Graham Chesby, Design Bridge Agency. Now, you're the Chief Creative Officer. And next to you, Christine GEHRINGER. I hope I pronounced that properly. GEHRINGER, Director R&D Packaging, DANONE, for the following brands: Evian, Volvic, Badois, and Salvatat. And you've come with your shopping next to you. Okay, we'll begin with you, Jean-Jacques Evra, as the founder of the Pentawards, and then we'll ask the question to your neighbor, Gérard CARON, afterwards. So you've seen and held and squeezed thousands of packages with the 10 years of Pentawards, and you ran an agency for 15 years, and you decided that we'd have the 1010 exhibition at ALL4PACK Paris 2016. We have wonderful packages, but why? We have 100 packages. What's a successful package? It's simple packaging. So I have a few here. These are the winners of this year's Pentawards. So to show, look at how simple this is. Where's the camera? Oh, here it is. Okay, can you show it? Okay. This is a pizza brand. It looks like a pizza box, yes. Okay, but look at how simple they are. You've got the company's logo, and that's the package. You can't have anything simpler than that. Okay, speaking to the microphone, I've got other examples of simple packaging. You see everything in just a nutshell. Look at these BIC socks. BIC is a major brand. They're demanding. You can't find anything simpler than that. Okay, so you have socks from BIC. Here, this is iced coffee sold in China, and it looks like an espresso machine from Italy. This is also Chinese. This is milk, and you've got the cow on in the bottle. Okay. Oh no, you have to speak into the microphone. I can't do both at the same time. So when you open it, okay, Jacques is going to open the package. So you've got the cow's ears when you open that. So we've seen the best of breed, and always you have a single idea, something that's simple makes a package successful. Okay, so you're talking about a single idea. Okay, don't make life more complex than it is. So please, brand owners, stop trying to say everything on your package. Say one thing. Say what's necessary. Just get back to basics, and it's hard to reach the basics, and often it requires a lot of work. Okay, Gérard CARON, your turn now. Now, here we have a single idea. This is what is always behind successful packaging? Well, obviously, no. Otherwise, everyone would have a packaging design agency. What Jean-Jacques is absolutely true. The buyer, the consumer, has to swiftly understand the message, the type of product, and to see whether or not it's appealing. Does the package packaging really appeal. So there are complex feelings with the consumer in mind. It's not just value for money and price. And all of this has to be embodied in design. And this is where the designer's art comes into play. We come up with something that speaks to someone who sees it on the store shelf or in a shop window. And it's a type of alchemy. There's no real recipe for that. Simplicity is necessary. But if you're selling fine champagne or chocolate cookies, you're not going to have the same approach to simplicity. So basically, I think it's simplicity in the message and the understanding. Now, how you translate that into graphics, that's totally different. Marine FORLINI-CROUZET from ForceMajeure Design. This is a branding and packaging design organization set up in the U.S. 20 years ago by Mr. Renault. And you're in charge of the Paris office, which was set up 18 months ago, and you're active primarily in health and hygiene, and where you work with Unilever for the Dove brand, and this has been the case for the past 6 years. You're also involved in champagne. Now, you're in mass markets. What's successful packaging in a mass market? Well, to follow up on what Gérard just said, I think you have to see how the packaging actually resonates emotionally with consumers. That's more important than looking at differentiation. Well, at one point, differentiation is a word. Everyone wants to differentiate. We look at codes. We look at semiotics. We try to understand things. We have a problem with the microphones. You have to move the microphone with your head when you speak. So what we have to do is connect emotionally and tell a story. To create a desire. Okay, so when you're selling health and hygiene products like Dove, what's the emotion in shampoo? Okay, emotion in shampoo. Okay, first, emotion. First involves understanding what a woman wants and expects from the product and the act of using it, how she buys it, how she uses it. And you have to work on a set of things. As Gérard said, there's no miracle recipe. You have to use a set of drivers, the ability to tell a story, the ability for a woman to identify with the brand and the brand's territory. Now, that's the key point regarding a brand, so that wherever you see the brand and the product and the packaging, you identify it and you identify with it. There's also a language that we have to develop through the graphics, through volumes and shapes. Now, we're talking about graphic design, but you also have shapes and volume design, which also plays a role. And everything has to be harmoniously combined in order to create this unique relationship with the simple idea on the shelf. Okay, we'll get back to that a bit later, and we'll look at how you work with your customer. So, Gérald Gavini from Partisan du Sens, we think that this is a number of important things come into play for you. Meaning, and I think you're moving up market. I think you're involved in premiumization. I think you're going to be able to discuss this. We're talking about simple ideas, but going premium is it? Oh no, no. The name of the company is Partisan of Sens. So, okay, let me explain. We're a global design agency, and basically, we focus on luxury goods and luxury products. Now, for over 13 years, we've worked in different universes of champagne, coffee, and a lot of other universes like cosmetics. And gradually, we have developed tremendous expertise in premiumization. And this is something which is the focus of our work. We work at the heart of brands, and we try to extract the DNA and the quintessential essence of those brands. So we want to be able to extract what might not always be visible, something that might be concealed. We want to bring it up to date so that we can enhance the value of the brands by focusing on finish and doing everything perfectly. And this, we're going to try to showcase functionally and practically the design and the production process, so that what we designed with the customer is actually present on the store shelf, where we have a team, the agency where we work, often working with the marketing teams. Okay, so here we're looking at how you translate from the basic idea to the finished product. Now, here we've been speaking French among the frogs, so we're going to move to Graham Trisby, your Chief Creative Officer with Design Bridge. Are you located in London?
I'm based in London, so please don't hate me. I did vote to remain, okay? Pre-Brexit. I'm based in London. We have studios in Singapore, New York now, and Amsterdam. So
donc une agence internationale.
Global agency.
And our 30th anniversary actually this month as well. So we've been around, been there from the start.
Est-ce que c'est dans tous les marchés la même chose dans tous les pays?
In every market, in every country, you got to be simple and you've got to understand deeply the customer brief.
Yes, and we spend a
Là
lot
déjà
of
on a un point
time.
commun donc. Hein.
A lot of time trying to dig deep and understand. We've all spoken about the same thing. For me, it's about that emotional connection and what makes that brand relevant, especially now. A lot of the briefs we're getting is what makes that brand. A lot of established brands are becoming maybe not so relevant to the new millennial, the younger consumer coming. So it's what do we spend our time on is understanding what makes that brand really emotionally connect again and what we need to correct.
Donc on part du sens effectivement et on se connecte émotionnellement.
Connect emotionally and you tell a story.
Sensibilité.
Sensitivity, basically.
And I have a simple philosophy because I look after. We're a big agency. We have over 300 people across internationally. And we have a very simple philosophy about just has to be original thinking, whatever you do. And again, great examples with the pizza boxes or the.
Vous aimez les boîtes à pizza?
The pizza boxes, you like them?
I love them. I love them. It's done by a competitive agency.
On a presque l'impression que tout le monde pourrait les faire. Ces boîtes.
They could produce them, could design them.
Great idea of original thinking. We talk about original thinking. Philosophy is original thinking, storytelling, brand storytelling. So what are you evoking through? Especially we're talking about packaging here. Packaging is like the silent salesman. It sits there and it has to grab you. It has to be distinctive and unique. And so originality, storytelling, but with great craft and beautiful attention to detail. And I think some of the examples we've spoken about, and you can see on the exhibition, are all absolute examples of that.
L'idée simple, le packaging.
The idea, it's a unique packaging for a given product, channeling, conveying all the values. Christine.
Le groupe Danone.
Looking at DANONE, especially Evian and Volvic are present here. Now, we saw that it's essential to convey meaning and start with emotion. When you're selling water, isn't it hard to talk about meaning, or does it go without saying? Is it crystal clear as spring water? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, it flows like spring water. Okay, now we were looking at mineral waters, and you have the idea of purity, the source, the origin, that has to be transcribed in the packaging. So we're playing with emotions, but alongside emotions, when you're working on packaging mineral water, you also have to provide functions for the consumer. You can't disappoint the consumer when they're using the bottle. So. Okay, so you're saying it has to have meaning and practicality. Well, successful packaging in this area is a perfect alliance between what the brand wants to convey with emotion and also practicality. So we're not going to have emotion for emotion. We're not going to come up with orthopedic packaging because that wouldn't work. What do you mean by orthopedic packaging? Well, something that's only practical. Okay, that's not enough. So you're adding something else. Okay, you're saying you have to have the practical message, and the functional message is important. So you're saying that function has to be combined with meaning. That's right. That's why a design agency has to be involved very early on with R&D and to see how the consumer uses the product, what the consumer is attentive to, and we also have to look at the industrial constraints for the package in order to allow for optimum production in terms of cost and quality. We also have to look at the opportunities that packaging technology can convey, so that you as designers can use the graphic and design volume capabilities. So as a mineral water producer, you manufacture your bottles. You don't contract that out. Yes, that's important. So mineral water companies tend to have very robust R&D companies. We buy resin and we produce the bottle. So we have the equipment, we have the staff to design the bottles. So we're good at the technical end, on the engineering end, but we need help to bring in the aesthetic or the emotional touch. Okay, we've been talking about the sense and meaning of the Evian bottle. Okay, even if we're advertising something. Recently, the bottle changed its shape. This is the Evian Prestige bottle, which is without packaging. Didn't you strip your bottle bare? So, and what you've done is glue your bottles together. In fact, this doesn't replace a bottle. This is a supplementary range for the premium end of the market, because Evian water obviously has a single origin near Evian in the Alps, and we pack right next to the town of Evian, and this is available for consumers worldwide. So you're saying, oh, here we see packaging disappearing. Okay, what do you think about that? So for these markets, the competitive environment for the premium market is such that we have this code where you have smooth bottles where purity and transparency are at a premium, as it were. So we've premiumized the water bottle. And this year, we launched the pack without a film. There's no film around it, so the film disappeared. Okay, and obviously the film is a source of stress for consumers, because they have to open it, they have to roll it up and throw it out afterwards. And for the time being, it isn't even recycled in France. Okay, we've already discussed that in earlier discussions. So this pack actually enhances the and showcases the bottle, and this makes it easier to put your hands on the consumption unit. Okay, Jean-Jacques Evrard, this is easier than easy, simpler than simpler. You have no more reason for the Pentawards. No, it's only the start. Now, the best thing about a pack is its simplicity. Let me follow up on that. Well, you said the pizza boxes, anyone can come up with that. Well, anyone could have come up with it, but why didn't anyone come up with it earlier? Because it's so complex to do something easy. So long live simplicity. Bearing in mind that simplicity is the hardest thing to do. When you manage to concentrate everything you have to say, everything the product represents, to have something that's appealing in the shop shelf. The only way you can do that is with simplicity. Sometimes I'll be, okay, no advertising, but I look at Fleury Michon, I see they make cold cuts. I've got 50 boxes, and I don't know what to choose because they're all the same. They're all the same. They're not simple. Okay, Gérald, GALDINI, we're going to listen to you now. Now, you refer to the mass sector. You call it mastige as opposed to prestige. No, I didn't invent the term mastige, but today, in the universe of cosmetics or you have some brands which really maybe overdid things and perhaps overlooked the need for simplicity and basic values, and that destroyed the luxury aspect that's so essential in the pleasure of consumption and having true, genuine objects. So sometimes there's a lack of understanding. You lose your bearings, and then design can help us to bring us back to reality. This is where some of the smaller brands are innovative, they go further, and they stand out. Okay, now let's look at technology. Now, I don't know if you work for Danone. Okay, you don't, not at all. Good. Okay, we're going to have an invitation for tenders right after we complete this. Only joking here. How do you work with a major company that has its own R&D company and its packaging design agency in-house? Well, we do work with very large groups which are highly structured and that have an internal view. They have their history, their production facilities which are up and running. So what department in the company asks for the brief, and who do you want to work with to have a successful package? No two projects are ever identical. What's special about designers is that we can design lots of things, and each time, well, sometimes we reinvent the wheel and we invent all the processes that go around it. So we're constantly adapting to customer requirements. Each time we'll set up a new system. We'll try to establish bridges for communications. Now, who do you talk to in the company? Well, generally, most often, these are the marketing departments in. But what about R&D? Is R&D involved? Well, sometimes it depends. Sometimes they're brought in midway through the project, sometimes not at all. We personally believe in this methodology where R&D is involved, and in our production process at one point or other, we're going to bring them in to the process, and we'll work with them through the end of the development process. That's very important to move forward with creation. Sometimes that's necessary in order to overcome or do workarounds around technical problems. We prefer to do that, and we consider that we are, in a way, prime contractors. This means does this mean you're working with other companies that can suggest their materials? That's right. We work with some companies that have no R&D departments, which are wonderful companies with wonderful roots and wonderful products, and we can work with them when they need that help, and we can help them to innovate. We can help them to look for the values that we can help them to convey, and we can move forward with innovative projects and help them to enhance their image and to speak on an equal footing with the biggest firms. Okay, FORLINI-CROUZET, we've discussed the brief and also access to the brand's values, but maybe there's targeting, market targeting. Are these things that you're also involved in packaging design? Well, these are some of the items which we work with. Typically, we speak with marketing departments. Typically, they provide a great deal of information, quantitative and qualitative information on the brand, the product, on the market, and the brand's positioning. Well, studies, yes, we use studies, but we have to move beyond them. When you simply stick to what consumers like, dislike as identified in the study, or what consumers state is the ideal for them, that doesn't take us as far as we have to go. And there's no place for innovation and creativity in that. Is it necessary for a product brand to have a territory? Well, you have to target, yes, but you have to be able to understand that, but then you have to move beyond it. To follow up on what Gérald said, What makes packaging successful is a virtuous dynamic, a virtuous circle where you have the technical capacity to understand intimately a brand, to identify the consumers, the target, their usage, and all the rest. But you also have to see how an agency can aggregate the various parts and create a synergy to build on what's present in the group and brand. We're talking about suppliers as well. And the role of design isn't simply to create something art for art's sake. This is an applied art. And we have to work with industrial production processes. So what we create has to be manufactured and brought to the market. Here we're working with everyone who manufactures. So the agency has to play its role as a catalyst among all the people. You also have cultural issues. US and UK companies are great in bringing design management in pretty early on in the process, and design packaging as well. And they can also bring in R&D and suppliers early on. And what makes packaging successful is to be able to draw the best from all of the resources, to get people to work synergistically, and to see to it that the single idea that Jean-Jacques EVRARD mentioned is something we always bear in mind and create. It takes a lot of time. In packaging design, there are lots of steps, lots of people. There's a multitude of sources of information that could lead us to forget our basic instincts and intuition, because this is an intuitive, creative area. So we have to bring everything together, and this is something else agencies do. We don't simply look at understanding the brand. Okay, so you're an essential component of the decision-making process for the company. Okay, Graham. Now, Graham, how can you avoid getting lost? How can you avoid making mistakes?
C'est un Anglais qui revient.
Okay, I'm asking an Englishman to answer that question.
How can you avoid making mistakes? Sometimes you need to make mistakes to learn from that. You know, sometimes you do need to fall over.
Donc là, vous vous décomplexez. Hein? On a absolument besoin de faire des erreurs pour réussir.
Make mistakes to advance.
I believe, for me now, after 30 years, but I've been quite a long time in this industry.
The microphone, please, in front of your mouth, of course.
Okay. I believe that, I think there's a bit of a return to sort of intuitive, for me, the choice of clients now choosing, again, what agencies they work with. There's a lot deeper understanding, I think, of that choice that they make with going into working with projects take a long time now. If you're working on a range that can
pour
be 2-3 years
pour éviter les erreurs, il faut
mistakes, you got to work upstream with the client. You confirm this.
Absolutely. Gérald.
I believe that for me it's about teamwork with the client, working with on all levels, from guys that are producing the machines that are making stuff to the brand teams to the design teams that you work with. So it's a real.
Avez-vous un exemple de?
Give us an example of design packaging from the UK, which you can share, which was successful for the global market.
I believe it is on show in the Pentawards.
Bien sûr, pas seulement la Tour de Londres.
The Tower of London, of course.
Number 10, which we worked for with Diageo. That was a beautiful, beautiful bottle. Real team effort around the whole thing from the client team. It wasn't actually researched. It didn't research, but it's kind of resurrected the kind of emotional feel that consumers have in that brand. And so it's resulted in a financial success. It's resulted in, for us, a kind of shared celebration, why we're sitting here, right? It's been celebrated as a package. But it wasn't, it was a gut feeling from all team, from high-end Diageo guys of actually believing in this idea, a very simple idea that was inspired by a cocktail shaker. The people got, oh, I get that. And it transported them emotionally to go, yeah, I understand that. So I think... but it was a bit of you have to take risks. I believe in you do have to take risks and take a little bit of pinch of salt. Things get researched, but take it with a little bit of research, a bit of salt in there, as we say in English.
Gérard Caron, on a des...
Okay, Gérard Caron, there are sectors of industry where it's hard to express creativity in France, as in the UK. we're countries with cultural traditions. Okay, let's pat ourselves on the back. No, that's not what I was getting at. Sorry. But there are areas like wines. There are other areas where there's such a weight of history and tradition that you have a feeling that the single idea is something you can't go beyond. How, if you're an agency, how can you move forward with successful packaging in wines? In these traditional sectors. Okay, I understand. Now, you're asking about great traditions and especially wines. Now, you have to make a distinction between two types of markets. You have markets which are opening to the product, and there are lots of new consuming countries for wines. And here we see something, and Pentawards helps us to observe this. There's lots of creativity in packaging, in the bottles, and the labels, and so on and so forth, because you're starting from scratch. And when you're starting from scratch, you have to move forward. This way. There are other countries like Italy and France which have tremendous traditions and great wines, and you have an image that has to be defended, and that's the image which is recognized worldwide. Now, are you going to totally change the packaging for a great wine that's known worldwide because you want to create that would make no sense. And the journalist said, well, and the bottle shapes are well known, and the symbolic. You have the standard shapes for Bordeaux, Burgundy, Alsatian wines, and Coton wines. Okay, that's tradition. What do you add to differentiate? No, I wouldn't say that's what we have to keep. No, we keep some things until we see that the market has tipped over in the new direction, because the new markets have prevailed over traditional markets. In that case, you have to challenge yourself utterly. There are also some brands that play upon the idea of tradition, where the date of origin is essential. What's essential? What's interesting now is to see the number of products, not only in wine, but also in beers and other areas, where they refer to a date of creation, whereas 20 or 30 years ago, that was something that was hidden. It was hidden because it was old-fashioned. And now beer is an area where there's a lot of creation, and they're making perhaps the greatest progress in alcoholic beverages. Now it's trendy to go to friends for a party with a pack of beer. No one did that 10 years ago. I'm not saying you have to do A or B. You have to observe the market all the time. You have to observe the consumer as well, because consumers are constantly moving, okay? The tradition is important up to a given point, and then you see maybe you have to inject novelty in it, not breaking everything, but moving forward. Well, once again, here there is no recipe, but you have to identify the signs which the consumers know. Dom Pérignon isn't going to change everything overnight simply because you drink champagne in different ways. If you buy Dom Pérignon, you're especially buying the image. The same applies for Evian. Evian has a brand capital, but Evian is constantly innovating. But it's always something which is almost an imperceptible evolution rather than revolution for consumers. Well, how do you describe this? Well, Evian worldwide is associated with the Alps, with the French Alps, with purity, and with a degree of snobism in a number of countries. In Japan, if you drink Evian, it's a sign of standing and quality. Okay, so this means that Evian, someone who drinks Evian is a successful person. Okay, now let's look at what successful packaging looks like. Here we have some examples. With the drop on the right, could you... Okay, now we're moving away from the prestige bottle. Okay, we're going to stick to Evian, but afterwards I'll show you something from Volvic, which I think is also very successful. Okay, I'd like to congratulate the team that's worked on this. Okay, successful packaging, as we heard, is something which will create the combination of emotion and practicality with the brand itself. Okay, and Gérard CARON discussed that. That's right. So you wanted me to discuss this water drop. I love it. And it's a wonderful project. It took quite a bit of time, and it reflects the purity of the water. It also represents a drop of water. And it's very simple in terms of design. It's just a container with a simple PET lid with a simple lid. It's PET, and it conveys a simple idea. What is the idea? Well, hydration, pure and simple and swift hydration, and anywhere, yes. Something else I'd like to say about this project. It took a number of phases. At one point in R&D, we were dreaming of putting a lid to replace the screw-on cap. But that's an industry standard for packaging. But a lid like this on water, that was different. So this was a revolution. At one point, the design agencies and a brand, Evian, worked on this, and we suggested this. We thought it was great, but we were wondering how we were going to produce it. Obviously, it wasn't going to be on our existing huge bottling machines. So what did you do? No, then we decided to move beyond that. There were industrial and manufacturing constraints, but we were all convinced that this was going to be a real differentiator and was a great thing for the Evian brand. So we also worked with our manufacturing colleagues to find a manufacturing partner to work on this. So we worked with Textor from the Bosch group, and we'd never worked with them before. So the designer understood our constraints, and we saw the problem in R&D. So when we see something that looks great, the right thing and exceptional, we'll do everything we can to find the industrial solution to produce. Okay, say something about the Volvic bottle, and then we'll wrap up with you. I think this is another fine illustration of emotion and functionality and consistency with the brand. What we wanted to do was identify most of the stress a consumer feels when drinking water. The first is the screw-off cap. Second, more than the older people complain about opening the bottle with that cap, the screw-off cap. And then it's holding, the prehension. Holding it, the weight, pouring it. If the bottle's too soft, it's going to be pushed out. Or giving a 5-year-old kid a 1.5-liter bottle could be a problem. So when we saw that with the R&D team, the first thing we did was dress up as elderly people. Okay, you couldn't dress up as 5-year-old kids. We could have done that, but what we did was work with a specialized agency, and we put on clothing that made us act like old people. So we felt the problems that old people felt. That helped us to imagine solutions. Well, a cap, and then the waste of the bottle. Working with the brand, we were able to see what Volvic could do. Okay, this is very much a British thing. In the UK, they would have dressed up as water bottles, wouldn't they? Okay, so the result was a very attractive and convenient, practical package, and it's innovative, and it addresses some of the stresses that consumers feel. Okay, Gérard, CARON, what would you as a professional say? Is this a successful package? Does it comply with the brand's values, and does it improve functionality? Well, first, I'd have to be perfectly familiar with the brand, but if it's successful. Well, it's successful if it meets consumer expectations. Based on what I've heard, I think that's the case. But successful packaging is only, for successful packaging, the proof is in the figures. What we want to do is sell. We want to sell more. If you sell more, that means you've reached the proper target and you found the right design. Now, the figures are going to be the proof of the pudding. Okay, because this isn't only applied art. We have to sell. Okay, the artist is going to create things, and the artist sees the world as he or she wishes to see it. We have to look at results. Okay, I have to wrap up because my objective is to end on time. So, Gérald, GALDINI, I'm sorry. One last question. we're talking about major companies and groups. We're talking about big companies. Now, the pizza box isn't a small company's product. Lots of people think that design is only for the big boys. Are we wrong? Well, that's what some people thought. I think that design is crucial for every company that wants to look at its brand and image in order to have a future and convey its know-how. Today, increasingly, we're ready to move forward in partnerships where we'll allow lots of companies to move forward. Well, these are often companies rooted in tradition who realize that now they have to innovate because the market is changing and expectations are different today. Now, if you have trouble, if it's hard to change the shape of a Bordeaux, a claret bottle, because it's an iconic shape, there are other ways to change brand images in this area, and we'll work with them. Up to development, we'll advise them. We can create new products, often for other markets. And these small companies that don't necessarily have their in-house R&D department can use our know-how to move forward. We can work with them up to manufacturing with Italian brands, or we worked with Prosecco sparkling wine in Italy, and we can work with them, and the production systems are different and often very simple. Okay, Martin FORLINI-CROUZET, I'll let you have the parting shot. Is design for everyone? Yes, for everyone, including small companies. Let me get back to what I said earlier. Design is an approach process, and it applies to small companies and large companies alike. I think a design agency has to be able to embrace all of the different types of companies and brands. There's no recipe, as Gérard said. You have to understand intimately who you're talking to. You have to understand customers. So it's not such thing as a big customer or a small customer. No. No, you have brands. Some of them have long-standing stories. Others have to have a new history created. Graham discussed the millennials, a target for many brands. People aged 25 to 35. They're blowing up existing brands and ways of speaking. They've introduced a revolution in status, especially in the luxury area. This is just emerging, and everyone is required to deal with this if you're in an SME or in a big multinational. So design is important for everyone. Okay, there's a future for design. Thank you very much for speaking with us and helping us to move forward with successful packaging and setting our minds wandering, especially with water. Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes for another discussion, which you're going to love. We're going to be discussing the secrets of cardboard packaging. Thank you very much.